Hello, it's Ali here, and that person is...
Hi guys, I'm Jenny. Nice to be here.
Cool. So we are both part of the Marine Conservation Society Education Department. Jenny's the boss, to be honest, but there you go. I'm just kind of like a little stone on the beach. My job is I'm the Public Engagement Officer, and I do all sorts of stuff, and I run around and I talk to you guys and I talk to other people, and we write stuff and we do lessons, and we try and get people more engaged with the ocean. That's our job. So the Marine Conservation Society, we've been around, gosh, since the 70s really, and certainly the early 80s as the Marine Conservation Society. So we've been around a long time, and we just love the ocean, and that's what we do, and this is what today is all about. So I think that's enough about the Marine Conservation Society. We're a great bunch, but do get involved and go and look at all our stuff on our websites. So today we are going to be talking about climate change, and it's going to be an introduction. So if you're an absolute climate change ace, I'm going to be asking you questions. You're very welcome along, and you can come down into the chat below, and Jenny will help us with that. If you're an absolute ace on climate change, that is good. So a couple of questions I've got at first. Who here is there anyone here in a schoolroom, in a lesson? Is everyone maybe schooling at home? I don't know. If you could let us know in the chat, if there's a teacher out there or someone running a session in school, let us know, and how many people are in the classroom with you. That would be really useful. And as we go, it's kind of, if you ask questions and we go, we'll come back and pick them up, but there will be time for questions at the end. But I'll be asking you questions as we go. So let me try, and by the way, I'll apologize now. As you can see, I am an old person. So therefore, Zoom and Teams and Whiff Waff and Pling Plong and Ping Ping, all of these things are a bit confusing for me because I'm an old person. I'm better at dealing with things like actual lumps of rock and fossils, because there's like 2 fossils here, okay? That's a little paperweight of an ammonite. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, so I'll start my screen. Let me share my screen with you guys. So that's me, climate change and introduction, Marine Conservation Society. We've done that bit. Let me just flick through, if I go through at the bottom. So let's start. Here's my first lovely little slide. It's not the green, the brown, or the yellow. What planet are we on? You can shove that into the chat if you want. What do we describe this planet as? Because I've got a dead easy question to start. What do we describe this planet as? I'm just going to go and have a little look at the chat. Let's go and have a look. Chat, let's have a look in there. Blue, our home. I like that one, Cara. Our home. Great, I like that. And of course we're on blue. Blue is Mother Earth. I like it. Good. It's our lovely blue planet. Let me go down and flick on. Let me show you this next one. How gorgeous is that? I hope I'm not in the way. Maybe that's just my own screen that I've got looking funny there. Isn't that beautiful? And just to let you know, at the end we will be providing some links, and included in those links is a link to NASA's photographs. They're, for the teachers out there, these are free to use. Certainly for people like us doing these kind of things, they're free to use, and their images of this beautiful blue planet are just stunning. And it's a great website actually. NASA, they do a whole sort of young people kids section. It's really good, but you'll see the link at the end. So my first question is coming up, and I'm going to ask Jenny to go and have a look in. So as I've said, I'm really technical, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press a button and I bring across a really snazzy slide that I made to ask my first question of you. It's an easy question, so I'm just going to press the button. There's my first question. It's dead easy. That is my first question to you, just to wake your brains up. All right, I'm just going to read it out. Easy question. It is an easy question. How much of our blue planet, bit of a hint there, is actually ocean? Bit of a hint. Okay. All right, let's have a look. What are people saying? Let's go and have a look in the chat. 75%, 70%, 70. Guys, I'm not surprised. We're secondary school age here on the whole, I think. So it's about 70%, just above 70%. And that is the ocean. Don't forget, of the remaining 27 to 30% of that, there is freshwater lakes and rivers. So just the marine bit, the salty bit, about 70%, 70, 71, 72%. But I'm just going to show you my brilliantly, you can see how good on a computer I am. When I showed you my amazing slide, this is really important, the poles, because we know what is happening with this number of how much of our planet is ocean, how much the percentage is going up because of global warming and these parts of the planet. Okay, get rid of that one. I don't think we need it again. So good. It's an easy start. So we're not going to be doing everything as easy as that. I'm just going to minimize my chat now. So my first question is, what is climate change? We're going to try and get to the end of this, that we hope that you could give a reasonably good kind of definition, if you like, about what that is. But before we go on, I'm going to take you back. I'm just going to take you back. Let me see if I can take you back to my photo. This image is important. I want you to concentrate on this image. I really like this image. Please notice the amount of footprints on it. If we had to describe this image, I'd say there's some land, there's water, and there's the impact, the imprint of a human. And this is what this is all about. But please notice how many footprints there are on this beach. We're going to see another beach a bit later. So let's just flick forward. There you go. I'm going to move that out of the way. These days, our planet looks a lot more like this. Compare that to the image we've just seen. So we're not going to be necessarily talking about the population of the planet today, but it's definitely true. This animal and that animal, there's a lot of us. And this is having a big impact. And we're going to talk about a special word that describes our age later on toward the end. So it's really important that we keep this in mind. The first picture of the beach, just one person, 2 or 3 light footprints, to this image where there are more and more people. I will come up into the chat as we go, and Jenny will let me know if there's anything in particular that I need to jump onto. So let's have a look. What is climate change? It's a really big and difficult question. But the first thing I've got to say is, I'm going to ask you, if you have the ability to do this, can you do me a favour and look out the window? I'm going to look out mine. What's the weather like with you guys? How is it? In Cheltenham, I'm in Cheltenham, I'll let you know. It's quite grey, it's quite cold, and I'm wearing shorts, so I should have put some trousers on. And there's a little bit of rain. I think we maybe do need that rain. It's not a very nice day, I would say.
Lots of people are saying that it's pretty rainy and windy where they are as well. If it's not started yet, where Sandra is, or if that isn't Sandra's person, it's about to rain, and Cara's saying it's rainy and windy, and you saying it's windy in Cardiff as well.
Thank you. Well, I'm sorry that we're all sharing not particularly nice weather, but when we talk about climate change, it's not the weather. When we talk about climate change, it is not the weather. If you want to relate weather to talking about climate change, you have to be talking about huge, long periods of time. I'll just pick up my little diary here. There's my little 2020 diary, which has been an interesting diary this year. It just says lockdown, and there's lots of blank pages. If we look at weather over a long period of time, and I'm going to look at some notes in a second because my maths is terrible. If we look at weather over a long period of time, that enables us to start talking about climate and climate change. Climate change is not the weather outside our window. Our forecasters are very good. The Met and the BBC, The Met is fantastic. What a great bunch of scientists working there. They can accurately predict weather, certainly 3 or 5 days, excuse me, 3 or 5 days, maybe even a few weeks. They can predict the weather. Predicting our climate is harder because we are talking a much longer period of time. So, of course, if we're going to look at our weather for 10 years, we'll be talking about 3,650 days, or 20 years, 7,300, or 30 years, 10,950 days, or 40 years, 14,600 days. If we looked at weather for that amount of time, then we can start talking about climate. So it's not the weather outside your window. That's where I'm trying to get at. It's not the weather outside your window, but it is looking at weather over a long period of time. Now, we know that our planet certainly is heating up and our weather has changed. Oh, and I'm going to show you something. I'll have to go to another bit of the screen in a second. I'm going to show you something. There's a question that's going to come in this. I'll show you this video once, and I want you to have a look. I'm going to bring up a different image for you to have a look at, and I want you to watch this carefully. One moment. 1880, and let's watch our planet from way above. Have a watch. So I'm going to show you that video again, but here's my question. No. Here's my question. I want you to watch this video again, and I want you to look really closely. What years, what dates really pop out at you? When do you start to see things really heat up? Okay, so that's my question. I'm just going to go back in and I'll share that video again. Here's my question for you. Watch closely. What dates really jump out at you? Okay, I would like you to watch this video carefully. Which dates jump out? So we're right back in time, 1880 to 1884 to beginning with, and then we're going to move forward. When do things really start to heat up? Let's have a look. All right.
There's a few responses here in chat, Ali. Did you want me
Good. Can you let me know some of those, please, Jenny?
Sure. So we've got Sandra said 2019. We've got Cara saying from 1938. Sandra's come back on and said from about 1930. So 1980 to 2019 was another suggestion. 1970 something was the last suggestion there from Hugh.
Okay, you're kind of getting pretty close. I mean, we've watched that video pretty quickly. I've watched that video a lot of times. You guys are pretty close to talking about when we're starting to see the real explosion in heat. It kind of really starts to ramp up from about the 40s and 50s, and particularly from the 60s onwards. So my little question to you would be, a quick question to you guys. This is a secondary school session. This is Key Stage 3 and 4 people on this. What happened that you think meant we had a sudden rise in heat production and activity? There's a very obvious thing, and I want you to start telling me some. I'll hop into the chat and have a look. What sort of things started to happen? Great. Helen again, fantastic. Helen, you're doing really great today. Hugh Jones says 1970 something. I like that. You were spot on the time when we really started to see that heat on. And the Second World War. Good. So my next question to you is, what happened after the Second World War? I want you to have a little think, okay? I want you to have a little think. What happened after the Second World War around the world? Largely driven by a few countries, but have a little think. What happened after the Second World War? What began to happen? And I have another question. I'd said this would get harder. I've asked you some easiest questions. What particular material becomes super, super popular after the Second World War? I'm going to go up and have a look in chat. What sort of stuff are we getting, Jenny?
We've got, it gets really hot. Plastics, Sandra's saying.
Good.
Plastic was invented and was used more, and fossil fuels were used more.
Well, plastic's been around a long time. Plastic's been around for about 150 years, which always surprises people. But definitely after the Second World War, I think it's true to say consumerism started to take over. The rise of shopping, plastics were really important in regard of us being able to move foods all around the world and move goods all around the world and keep them in good condition. So we started to fly more. Well, certainly when if I went back and talked to my parents and their friends never flew when they were children. These days, many of us fly far more often. Flying's become cheap, very accessible to most of us. After the Second World War, there was a big growth in our economy, the boom, the baby boom after the Second World War, where our economies grew hugely. Our population exploded as well, where people were more comfortable. We had bigger and better diets. We could afford to live more comfortably. This is what happened. And if we go back and look at that video, go and have a look at that on the NASA website. Just put NASA heat map and you'll find it. You can go and look closely to see what happened. So interesting. And yeah, it's true. Hugh Jones has put in there, they had to rebuild everything. Of course, certainly over in Japan, they had the miracle of the Japanese economy. They had a huge rebuilding job to do over there, as indeed did we, and Germany, and lots of countries around the world had big rebuilding jobs. Lots of concrete, lots of industry, lots of busy people. So there's a strong link here. Good. So some great answers there. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jenny. Now, scientists are very certain that there is one animal that is really heating up this planet, and that, of course, is us. What does this actually do to the planet? Now, I use this particular example. We'll go and talk about other ones. I love a polar bear. Who doesn't love a polar bear? Quick poll. Hands up. I love polar bears. So you're welcome to put your hands up. I love polar bears. I will probably never see one. But interestingly, more and more people are starting to see polar bears. Polar bears, wonderful animals. They like it cool. In fact, polar bears like it really, really cold. Let me just go down and we'll move our slide on. How do they hunt? You probably know, you watch Steve Batchel, you watch David Attenborough on Blue Planet and Blue Planet 2 and all the great series they do. You watch Ben Garrett and Lizzie Daly and all of these guys on TV and these fantastic people on the BBC and elsewhere and Netflix, nature documentaries. We know that polar bears hunt across the ice. And what do they hunt for? If you're a seal, you are basically on the menu. So they are brilliantly evolved to hunt across ice. That is how they hunt. Incredible sense of smell. Pretty sure that polar bears can smell a seal even a couple of meters below the water, and that's not only below the water, below the ice and the water. A polar bear can smell that. They'll wait near holes because we know seals are a mammal. They come up to breathe at the surface in a little hole there, and a polar bear sort of saying, hello, it's time for lunch. What's happened as our poles, remember me pointing to my little picture? As it's heating up this planet, we're starting to melt this ice now. And these are the sort of things, let's move on. The ice really, really has begun to melt big time. This environment is far harder for a polar bear to hunt in than big, solid, large areas of ice. What is interesting, as the polar bears have to come back off of the sea ice, this is ice out over sea, and as that decreases, they come further and further south, nearer and nearer land. we are starting to see more and more polar bears in villages and towns up in the very far north of this wonderful blue planet of ours. So bears are really starting to interact with us as a species. And the other interesting thing is they are starting to interact with other bear species. We think probably, well, we know bears are starting to interbreed with terrestrial land-based bears, the large brown bears and Kodiak bears, whatever you want to call them, up in North America and Canada and places like this. These animals are starting to interbreed. Probably polar bears, maybe they're starting to disappear as a species because of climate change. Now, most of us will never see, I'll flick back to that, this is a nice slide. Most of us will never, this is a female polar bear with two almost ready to go cubs. They're ready to go at that age and that size. Beautiful animals. Most of us are never going to see one. Let's bring it back to maybe Friday night. So I'm a bit of a Friday night supper guy. I like my fish and chips on a Friday. I love fish and chips. Quick poll, Jenny, I'm going to ask, who likes fish and chips? That is an actual question. I'm asking that. I told you I'd give you some easy ones. I'm hoping I'm going to look in the chat. I'm hoping everyone is saying, me, brilliant. Yes, okay. And now you can hear my wonderful accent. I'm an Essex boy coming out of southeast London into Essex. That's my background. I love mushy peas as well. And a bit of vinegar. Oh, I love it. And my little children, they also now like mushy peas and vinegar. I do love fish and chips. Now, I'm asking that question quite seriously. I want to try and engage you in this lesson talking about climate change. Cod are one of our favourites in this country. Here at MCS, we make something and study and produce something called the Good Fish Guide. It's a fantastic guide. It's a free download, free app to download. Go on our website, just search for Good Fish Guide. It's like the kind of, I don't know, the really clever, kind, ocean sensitive fishmonger in your pocket. They will help you make a sustainable choice about the fish that you put on your plate. Now, cod are one of our favourites. We all love cod and chips, please, mate. Cod and chips, can of Coke, and some mushy peas. We all know that. But as our waters are heating up around the UK, cod are starting to move further and further north. And what we find is that our fishermen, and on the whole, we've got some great fishermen in this country, small boats, light gear, fishing sensitively, sustainably, not great big heavy super trawlers dredging everything up. They're fishing sustainably because it means they can fish next week and next year and the year after that and 10 years down into the distance and so on. So we know these fishermen are starting to struggle to catch this particular species around the UK because the waters are starting to heat up, and just like polar bears, cod do like it pretty cool. So the cod are going further north. It affects our industry, our fishermen. But interestingly, not only do animals move away, I'm going to use my other, this is pretty technical stuff. Some animals move up. Let me show you a little slide here. Now, I'm hoping there's a few fish fans out there. I absolutely love fish. I'm a massive fish nerd. I think probably one of the biggest fish nerds going. In fact, a friend of mine, Tom Hurd, one of our ocean ambassadors, the blowfish, he's about the only person who's a bigger fish nerd than me. Maybe Peter Richardson, I don't know. So this is a wonderful fish called a grey triggerfish. And I hope you're looking at it thinking, oh, that looks like the kind of thing I've seen on holiday. Yep, that's true. Now, not long ago, the only triggerfish you would have seen around the UK would have been in an aquarium. These days, we've now seen them not only just off the south coast, but all of the way around the UK, even off of the islands north of Scotland, we find grey triggerfish. We're pretty sure that they now live year round off of our south coast. They are there all year round. So some things go north and some things are coming up from further south from the UK and into our waters. This, when you say, what does climate change mean? Think of polar bears and think of grey triggerfish. It's meaning the movement of animals from one habitat to another. Now, how are humans heating up the whole planet? It's a great big place. We know about 71 rising % of the planet is ocean. How are we heating it up? Easy. Now, you remember the footprint we talked about on the beach? One of the things that we also are impacting on, and you talked about it in the chat, so that's great, I don't have to go back to that, we are burning fossil fuels. Every single one of those vehicles there, all of the buses will probably be diesel, the lorries will be buses, there's some petrol there. I would say they're burning petrol and diesel. We burn fossil fuels all of the time. What this releases, particularly carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. So a quick little poll, just let me know, hands up, who's heard of the expression greenhouse gas? Quick little poll there. I'll have a look in the chat. Hopefully some of you guys are answering. Let me have a look. Chat.
I can see there's lots of people putting their hands up.
Good.
4 or 5 people putting their hands up.
It's a common expression these days. But what is a greenhouse gas? It's kind of a bit like it does what it says on the tin. Let me flick on. I wish my slides would work when I click the button. Right. Talked about burning fossil fuels, releasing carbon dioxide, CO2. And here we are. Greenhouse gases trap heat. As we've got our wonderful closest star, the sun, sends its lovely heat energy into this planet, and it warms our atmosphere just the right amount. Some stuff will come in and bounce off. And interestingly, as our poles retreat, white, the colour, white as a colour, reflects heat. The land, certainly up in the north, the land underneath where the sea ice melts and we end up with dark sea or land, this absorbs heat. So just by taking away the colour of our ice and snow, we're heating up our planet. As the heat comes in, CO2, particularly amongst the greenhouse gases, traps heat in our atmosphere. And of course, we've seen it there. It's just like our Earth being in a greenhouse, the greenhouse gas. So what does it mean? This is what it means. Not only the land, but the ocean, all of it is heating up. So let's go on. So the effect of all this activity on the planet is that we're heating it up, and we are heating it up so much quicker than we've ever heated up a period of time before. We have had climate change in the past. However, climate change used to be over enormous long periods of time. Now, just remember back to that video, the NASA heat map. So if you want to go and find it, and I will put the link at the end, we've put it on there, Jenny and I, the NASA heat map. Think how quickly it stayed kind of mainly blue. This is even after the Industrial Revolution, which is interesting. You're talking 1760 to about 1840 was the Industrial Revolution. Our video started in 1880, and it stayed relatively stable until we had this big explosion in consumerism and the sort of rise in a more, maybe if in certain parts of the world, in the Western world particularly, an easier way of life where we had more chance to consume and fly, to travel. And suddenly that heat map, we saw the yellows and the dark, dark oranges coming in more and more. We have heated the planet so quickly, and normally it happens over a long geological period of time. We've done it in someone like, I don't know, David Attenborough. He's 94. He would have seen, and he will talk about this, and I know he does, he talks about having witnessed, one human life can talk about witnessing the effect of climate change of this species on our planet. And again, this image here is another NASA image. They really are great. So talking about the effect of this species, the period of time that we live in is known as the Anthropocene, which is a wonderful word, Anthropocene. So everyone with me, hopefully sat at home, Anthropocene. So what does this mean? Okay, so anthro relates to people. It's a Greek word. Anthro relates to people, and of course we have the word in Greek for now would be seen. So it's people and now. These words linked together. People. Now, this time we are in, this is the Anthropocene, and it is our activity, our busyness, and we are all busy. This lockdown has been interesting to see us slowing down. It's heating up this planet really quickly. Now, I'm just keeping an eye on time. So, couple of questions. I'm going to ask you a quick question. We'll look in the chat. What is climate change? If you had to try and define climate change, let me see some of you out there. In fact, all of you have a go, and hopefully if there are teachers stood in front of the class, they're going to be shouting out answers or writing them down. Let me see in the chat if you have a bit of a go at defining climate change. I'll let you start, and then I'm going to drop in a bit of a clue. Can you define or have a bit of a go at encapsulating, capturing in a few words what climate change is? Let me have a look in the chat. If we just define climate change, okay, the earth warming up, yes, that's true. I'll give you a clue. Is climate change weather? Is it the weather outside our window? No, thank you, Cara. Climate change would be looking at weather over a very long period of time, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Going back with David Attenborough, he's been traveling the world since he was about 20. He's 94 now. Certainly, if we look at weather over his lifetime, we can talk about climate change. Okay, now, I've just done this slide. It's a wonderful Greek word. What age do we now live in? I'm not worried if you get the spelling wrong. I'm not worried about the spelling, but have a go. What age do we live in now? So I'm going to look in the chat. What age do we live in now? So I'm going to go up and have a look in chat. What do we call the age we live in now? Let's go and have a look in the chat. Anthropocene. Okay. The modern age, yeah, it's got a nice name. We do like to give names to periods of time. In fact, I'll use this. It's my little paperweight. I'll hold this up to give you an idea of when we talk about, so the age we live in now is the Anthropocene, okay? Which is talking about the Greek for humans, and new, it's the new human time. That is what we live in. The new time of the humans is what we call it, really, if you broke down that Greek word. If I hold this up to you, that is an ammonite. So it's a bit like, so it's a mollusk, it's a cephalopod family. It would have had little sort of things coming out there and it would have swum around. It's a bit like a nautilus or something like that, okay? So related to octopus and squid. This actual animal is from the Jurassic period. So this was swimming around 145 million years to, I don't know, about 220 million years ago. This actual one, I'll just, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Cara's just saying that she's got one of those somewhere at home. She's got one in her room, she thinks. Oh,
I'm going to go and look into, right, so I will tell you what they are. These are an ammonite. So they are, they're like cephalopods, so octopus, squid, that sort of thing. They would have little tentacles coming out here. And this actual one, I'm just going to check my date. So this one, actual one, yeah, I'm just checking, because I've got quite a big fossil collection. It's about 195 million years ago. This was actually an animal swimming around. That was the Jurassic. That's named after, there's the Jura Mountains between, my geography, between the Alps, between the sort of Swiss-French border. That's the Jura Mountains, where we started to sort of find these fossils and then define an age of these ages. That was an age we talk about. The age we live in now is the Anthropocene, which is what we talk about when we talk about this new human time. That is where we live in. Now, we've kind of got to the end. We've looked at what climate change is. It's not weather, but it is weather and how it's changed over a long period of time. Interestingly, I say a long period of time. In the case of this animal and the way our behavior has changed the planet, we have condensed, we've squeezed the changing of the climate of our planet by being so busy, by being so clever. Fossil fuels, they're a brilliant fuel. They're very stable, they're quite easy to get. They give brilliant energy returns when you burn them as petrol or diesel. One of the problems with fossil fuels is they're really, really good fuel. So we have a chance of a bit of a discussion and also some questions now. So one, you're free to ask questions in the chat. And also, I would like you to share with not only me, with the rest of the people on the chat, in your classroom from home, what can you, what can I, what can Jenny, what can we all do about the Anthropocene and our climate change? There's my question. What can we all, these very clever monkeys, what can we do? And you are very clever monkeys. What can we all do to slow down the change in this new human time? So questions I'll try and answer, big caveat there, little clause. I'll try and answer them, and I'd love to hear what you say in the chat about what we could do. What steps can we as individuals do to slow down climate change in this new human time? All right, I'm going to look at the chat. Jenny, please feel free to jump in and pick out any great questions. I'll look in the chat as well.
So we've got a great question, guys. I've just opened it up so that you can see each other's comments. So please just be sensible in the things that you're saying and just make sure you are only answering Ali's questions.
Eat less meat. That's an interesting one. Can I ask that person? Let me go back. Who said eat less meat? So, Matt. But now I'm hoping that might be our own Matt Barnes. If it is, hello, Matt. Now that is a really interesting one. I think definitely I talked about a consumer age coming after the end of the Second World War. And one of the things that we consume a lot, I'm going to show you my belly in a second. One of the things we consume a lot more of is food. And excuse me for doing this. I'm quite fat. I'm quite a fatty. Okay. I really do need to lose some weight. I eat too much. I eat too much. I drink too much. Let me have a look.
We've got an interesting question that follows on from that, actually.
Yeah.
I'm just going to scroll back up to get it. I think it was from Deborah. And she says, why do we eat fish if we work for MCS? Are we not concerned about the suffering of the fish? And why not go vegan?
Okay. So why we eat fish? Not everyone at MCS does eat fish. Plenty of people do. Why we still eat some fish, I would say the answer you get from everyone at MCS is we follow our own advice about only eating sustainable fish. I think it's arguable, very arguable, that eating fish sustainably has less of an impact on the planet than growing and farming meat. But certainly Matt Barnes, and I'm presuming that is maybe our own Matt Barnes. It might be a different Matt Barnes. Certainly
No.
Matthew is a reasonably common name.
It is our Matt Barnes.
It is our Matt Barnes. Hello, Matt. How you doing? Certainly we do need to be talking about reducing all of our consumption of fish and of meat. I think that is fair to say. And of stuff, of things. Certainly we need to reduce that. And we've seen a reduction through, and I'm looking at my window as another Ocado van goes past the window. We know that this lockdown has seen a return of nature around the world because of us as a species slowing down. Why do we still eat fish at MCS? It's a good source of protein. It's enjoyable to eat. It's tasty, but we do only, I can promise you, we do follow our own advice about only eating sustainable fish and not eating huge amounts of it. Look at alternatives too. Cod. Look at alternatives. And I think also, definitely, we've touched upon it before, probably I think it's fair to say around the world there is a movement of many people reducing the amount of meat and fish, but particularly the meat that they eat, and also people going completely meat free and looking into creating proteins, getting protein into our diets and good food into our diets from other places, plant-based menus. So let me come, any other questions that are really
There's lots of suggestions on how we can
all right,
our bit. So we've got things from not using so much gas to generally decreasing our carbon footprint.
and how would we go, and how would we, I mean, I saw a nice one in there, someone was talking about cycling, a very obvious one. Give me some ideas. How do we reduce our carbon footprint? I could sit here and give you 20 things that we could do, but it'd be really nice for you out there, the students listening in, sitting with their parents or with their teachers in the school. How will you reduce your carbon footprint? Have a little think right now. Maybe I'll give you a bit of a clue. You can see that. What's my picture? As I walk out, I'll give you a quick little hint. Whenever my children, they're 6 years old, whenever my children walk out of a room, that little flashy light up there stays on because they forget to turn the lights off. I'm just going to turn them off. I don't really need them off.
So we've got suggestions here, Ali, saying that we need to not travel as much, and that we can wear a jumper instead of putting the heat on. And then, of course, in response to your demo, don't turn the lights off when you're not using them as well.
Electric is an interesting one. I mean, Cara's put there not really electric cars because electric isn't helping either. That is true, although electric cars will vastly, and electric vehicles will bring down air pollution local, particularly to city centres. So I think that there is a case for, particularly for those of us living in urban, even suburban areas, and particularly in cities, to use more electric vehicles. Like electric buses will reduce the diesel and petrol particulate that are coming out of exhaust fumes. So I think there is definitely a case for electric vehicles. I of course understand, where is that electricity produced from? I think we need to, has anyone started to talk about, Jenny started to talk about the renewables word? Single-use goods and food waste generally, that's from Diana Clark, absolutely. We have coming up, here's a little challenge for you guys. In fact, I'm going to write it down. I would like you to try, where's the back of my board? I would like you to try, give me a nice clean board. Here's something coming up, I'll write down. Where's my pen? Where is my pen? Something I would really like you to try is the plastic challenge. It's coming up in July. The Marine Conservation Society do something called the plastic challenge every July. I kind of do it, and I know Jenny does it, and I'm sure Matt does it. We know Matt's really great on this stuff. We try and reduce our plastics as much as we can throughout the year. Have a go over July of either a day, even better a week, even better and the best. Try the whole month of reducing your plastic. It's called the hashtag, I'll just write it down with one of my really high-tech, I'm just going to click the button. Have a go at the plastic challenge. Have a go. In fact, I'll just press the button again. Pretty good, huh? Go to, have a look at. I'll just press it again. Click. Go to our website, or just type into whichever search engine you use. Plastic challenge. It would be really interesting to see what you find in your house about the single-use items you can cut down on. Have a go. So Cara, again, there's lots of talk here. China bowls, and there's a lot of stuff coming. So great. Someone talking about their bike. One of the things about lockdown that's been interesting, there's bike companies can't even keep up with demand. So Cara's, I go on my bike most of the time and not in the car. Great, Cara. Not only are you fit and strong and healthy, but you're helping slow down this Anthropocene, this anthropogenic change of the world that we're seeing. Definitely, I think it would be interesting if we could improve infrastructure around schools. Now, I live right next to a school, and Jenny and I have both been, well, kind of still are teachers, I suppose, know a lot of teachers and work with a lot of schools. And one thing that teachers say to me is, my young students really would like to walk and cycle to school more, but their parents or their carers or their guardians are worried about too many cars on the road. So there's both an answer and a problem in the same conversation. If we could improve the infrastructure, the roads and the way we move around our schools, if we could make that better and safer for walking and cycling, I think more of us, like you guys out there, and more parents like me, would be happy for our children to walk and cycle more. So that's, and don't travel as much. From Mike Singleton there, that might be from Mike, it might be Mike's a teacher or a dad, I don't know. There is definitely, I think we need to slow down. Let me go and have a look at messages. At my school, our parents pick us out at the gate, or we walk to them, and some people bike and walk from school. Good. So we know, and certainly MCS go out to schools. It would be someone like me or Jenny or Matt up in the northeast there. We go out to schools and we come and talk to you in school once lockdown has ended and the schools are back in normal rotation. They are certainly not at the moment. And yes, I think there's an interesting one coming from Diana Clark there about new builds having environmentally friendly design, better use of energy would be interesting, and more solar. We have a huge amount of energy coming into this planet constantly, every second of every day, from that big yellow thing that we can't quite see today because the cloud's too low and thick. So that's good. So Diana, some great suggestions there. Any other questions coming in? Is it Jenny, have I, or indeed Matt, if he's on the chat, is there a question we've missed that is a really good one? It's quite hard to, so Alistair, that's someone's got a great name there. Protector of Men, that's the Gaelic version of Alexander, which is the Latin version of Alistair.
I think we've got all of the questions from the chat, and maybe it's a good idea to move on to the activities, the follow-up stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you, everyone. Super stuff. Now, let's move on. I really wanted to say as well, hopefully you can see this. Are you seeing that okay, Jenny, just to confirm?
Yes, yeah, we've got it.
Here's my quick question. Where and when was this photograph taken? Where and when was this photograph taken? Quick one. Where and when was this photograph taken? I'll have a quick look at chat. Right, I know people have had it. We'll get right to the end and I'll show you the links very quickly. This was taken about 10 days ago in a reservoir in the Cotswolds. This is a picture of a reservoir in the Cotswolds about 10 days ago. I'm just showing you that picture. Now, I will flick past this. Now, we've done questions. Now, these are some activities you can do at home. So, there's a lovely little activity. My colleague up in Scotland, Tara Proud, did a lovely little session. I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but I'm just asking this question. Is our ocean fizzing? Is our ocean fizzing? You will need a pint glass of water out of the tap, some vinegar and a piece of chalk. Oh, and your eyes and your brain. Okay. Okay. And also there's some really great stuff from Oxfam there. So please, if you want to grab these, just highlight these and grab these little bitlies here. Our own little experiment that you can do with Tara up in Scotland, a really nice, very simple explanation of a very easy experiment you can even do at home. Just a piece of normal chalk that you'd be doing chalk drawings out on the road or the pavement, or drawing your well done key worker rainbows. Grab a bit of that chalk, bit of vinegar, a clear glass so you can see what happens. And my question is our ocean fizzing? Please also have a look at Oxfam, do some great materials, and of course MCS do some great materials, Cool Seas Investigators and Cool Seas Explorers. But Oxfam also do some really good resources that you will enjoy. So dive deeper.
Just take a screenshot of that slide if you want to keep those URLs, because I don't think you'll be able to click on them on your screen. So just screenshot your slide and be ready to do the next one. Okay, we'll let you screenshot. I'll give you a 5, 4, screenshot, 3, screenshot, 2, 1. Thanks, guys. Jenny, good suggestion. Thank you. Now, some dive even deeper links. There is a fantastic video. Jenny and I have watched this video and we both love it. So, how do plastic toy ducks swim around the world? They're plastic. They haven't got muscles and energy and little moving legs and webbed feet. How do toy plastic ducks quack quack and swim their way around the world? That's my question. So, as Jenny says, take a screenshot of this and go and check those links out. How does a plastic toy duck swim around the world? There's also a really good, some good stuff on BBC News talking about climate change and looking at weather again. And the Royal Society have some terrific information as well. So I'll give you a 5, 4, 3 on the take a screenshot. 5. Okay, and I think that's it. I'm going to go back to stop share and we're just going to chill. Jenny, come back in.
If there's anything I missed, Jenny, tell me to answer it or try, but we've done our kind of session.
Not at all. That was fabulous. Thank you very much. I have been on chat to try and get back to people as you've been firing things in and fielding them. So hopefully I've managed to catch all of those. There is, as I think I mentioned earlier on, there is a poll just to get some of an idea of what you thought of today's session. So if you can just jump in, I'm just going to launch it now. If you could just jump in and give us some quick feedback on what you thought of today's session, that would be amazing. So I'll just launch that now. There's only 4 or 5 questions, I think, there, and that'll just give us an idea of what you think. And then also when we finish up today, there will be a survey. Well, it's not survey.
I've got one more slide to show, Jenny, as well. Can I show my really technical slide?
Keep adding your feedback, guys, while Ali shows this next slide. I'll move it over.
Are you able to click the button from your end? I think you can.
To
just press any. Just put your finger like that will work.
I got you. Fantastic.
I'm just being a bit silly. I'm just still trying to talk to you as if I was in your classroom, and I'm making Jenny go, "Oh no, I've got to do something." So Jenny, sorry.
I'm clicking buttons and making things happen.
I just wanted to say from me, probably Great White Shark there, and my posters on the wall. Thank you for being here today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that, I mean, some of it was quite challenging, but really, thank you so much.